Burlington. Welcome to another edition of the King Kong Trail. I'm Doug Vandiver, sitting next to my beautiful wife, Amy Vandiver.
Hello.
And right across from us, Chip Genatino. Did I say that right?
Genatino. Yeah, you nailed it.
Oh, right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I heard about you talking about this on the radio station, and I'm like, now that's something I can get him to come on and talk about. And
Are we supposed to know what day it is? Like, can I say Happy Veterans Day to you?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. It is Veterans Day.
It's a podcast, so they could
Yes.
play it back.
Well, this is going to go out on Monday. So Monday the 13th. Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning. And so we're recording on Veterans Day, which is why I'm wearing my hat, which is I served on the USS South Carolina for 4 years, from 91 to 95. And what an experience. It was very cool. So
I'm glad you made it back.
I didn't go overseas or anything like that. My ship was in dry dock, so I did a lot of grinding and painting and drinking and things like that, which is, luckily I made it back through that.
Right.
But it was a great time when I was there. But so thank you. You are the owner and operator of
KCPS.
KCPS.
One of those assemblage of letters, yes. KCPS Radio in West Burlington.
1150 AM.
Right.
And great station. I really enjoy listening to it.
So we've been married 25 years, and for that whole 25 years, your voice has been the one that woke us up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
so we've been listening to that station. It's funny because now that we have the little spies called Alexa everywhere in our house,
Right.
Doug will have the radio station in his pocket, so when he's walking around, he can hear it, and then he has it going in one room and another room, and he can't hear very well. But I hear the radio station not only once, but 3 times because it's all slightly different and on each device. And I'm like going behind him, turning him off. But I mean, I'm still listening, but I'm like, I only want to listen to one sentence said one time as opposed to in, chorus.
Well, half the time, too, I've got it in my hearing aids, so.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's in your hearing aids? Yeah. It's just a great station.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what we like to do here on the King Kong Trail is we like to talk about Burlington. There's a lot of good stories out there about Burlington, and you are definitely one of them. You're not a local guy. You're not from here, but you are from here. You've been here, quite a few years.
36. But I'm
Wow.
not keeping track.
So tell us your connection to Burlington, how you got here.
You can't say by car because that's my joke.
Okay. Darn. Well, it's a simple thing. I went to college and studied radio, TV, film, and I have a love affair with radio from long before that, from my childhood. And at the college I went to, we had to do all three. You couldn't specialize in one, so to say. So from there, I ended up in the television and movie business in California instead of radio, because that's where the jobs were at the time I was coming out. And also, I wasn't that good at radio, honestly. And so I did that work for about 10 years, and all the while I looked for radio stations to buy. The money out there out west, even now, and certainly back then, was, a lot. And it was a successful thing, but I didn't love it.
Right.
So I had a broker that was looking at radio stations, and on the weekends, just as a hobby, I would go and look at radio stations for sale. And I had a sort of a standard thing that I did, which I went and looked at them. I found all the problems with them, and then I'd make a ridiculous offer.
Sure.
That they would laugh me out, and I would then go home, and we would do the whole thing again next weekend. My wife at the same time, so I was working on movies at that time, and so the schedule was that we shot from first light, meaning you got up earlier than first light and got all the sets set up and did all the things you had to do. And my wife worked in a studio setting at Family Ties, so they didn't shoot at all till about noon. But they might go till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. So, and we were freshly married. So I saw her sometimes on weekends, and we were in the bed at the same time, overlapping for some few hours each night. But it was no way to be married, frankly.
Right.
So my solution was, I'm gonna get more serious about buying a radio station somewhere, and then we're gonna go run it together, because we had met in college at the college radio station. So we did that. I kept looking, and this was one of the places. This radio station that I've owned all these decades now was very successful when it started in 1965, and went through the growing pains of having FM come along and these kinds of things. So the guy ultimately bankrupted. He was a very good operator. It was a very good station. I have all the files from those days, and he really did a great job. But ultimately bankrupted it. And it was off the air for 18 months or more.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was continuous.
No.
Okay.
Belly up. Well, there were a bunch of investors that had invested. Like 5 people put a lot of money backing this guy. Some of them, I think they're all gone now. They were older then. I think they're all gone now. So, but I won't mention their names. But they're notable people from the community. And so I saw this one, and I flew to Chicago and took the train down, because I've never really spent any time in the Midwest. I had driven back and forth from the East Coast to the West Coast a number of times, but not usually through Iowa for some reason. And so I came on the train. I got off at the train station. This is 1987, probably. I'm always a year off. Yeah, I think 87. And it was October. And it was a day like today.
Beautiful colors.
Yes. The leaves were all changed. The river was beautiful blue, because the sky was blue that day. The weather was just spectacular. And
It was calling to you.
Yeah, I got off that train and I thought, wow, look at this. This is a hidden gem. And, of course, you could walk to the radio station from the train station, because at that time it was at 408 North Main Street. And so I walked in and met the lawyer there that was in charge of talking to me about possibly purchasing it. And we went in, and the building was a disaster. It was built in 1872, and it hadn't been taken care of in quite a long time. So we went in, and it was like 1974 or 5-ish feeling in there. Shag carpet and just awful equipment. I mean, it was good equipment in its day. But so anyway, we went through there, and I talked to him about, do you mind if I turn on? So the electricity was on, because they had to keep the heat going, keep it from freezing or whatever. So, do you mind if I turn on some of this equipment just to see if it works or whatever? Some of the bigger things, like the console.
Right.
And so I turned on them. He said yes. I turned on the console, and first there was like a flash, a small flash, and then there was smoke coming out of the seams of the big old Gates console. I'm sure you've seen them, built for industrial use, big old thing. And there was just a small electrical fire that was happening in there. So I turned it off and got that stopped, and I said, I think I've seen all I need to see. And he said, well, wait a minute now, because the building was a disaster. The equipment was terrible and old. There was nothing there that I could visualize being able to get together. He said, there's a piece of property that goes with this where the towers are up on Irish Ridge Road. And let me take you up there, because that's in pretty good shape. Oh, okay. So we went up there, and yeah, it's a nice piece of property, and it had 3 standing towers on there. I mean, they weren't falling over or anything. So, okay, there's a little something here. On the business end, is pretty good. The transmitter looked like it was pretty good. And so, long story short, we go back to his office, and I do my regular thing, which is I make a ridiculous offer. Maybe
You started a fire. Let's lower the bid.
Yeah. I think I offered like 40% of what they were asking. I don't recall the numbers now, but it was still a lot of money. I was in my 20s. So I wanted a station I could own. I didn't want a bunch of people involved. because I had had bad experiences at other radio stations. You know, there's levels of management, and everybody up the line is telling you what to do on the radio.
Right.
And then criticizing everything you did immediately afterwards before you've even had a chance to. So I didn't want all that stuff. So anyway, he accepted the offer with such speed and he just, bam, yes, we'll take it. And I'm like, uh-oh. I must like, there must be something wrong here. I mean, there was
The game's up.
no hesitation. And I thought, oh boy. And I said, well, okay. He said, I assume you want to put down a deposit. I mean, he was ready to get going on this deal. And I said, yeah, okay. So I get out my checkbook. For the kids in the audience, checkbook is a thing that we used to use. Anyway, so I wrote a deposit check, a decent size deposit check, and I got back in time to get on my train. And we didn't have cell phones or anything, of course, in those days. And so I get back home to California, and I tell my wife, pack your bags. We're moving to Iowa. And she's like, what? Because I hadn't necessarily told her. I had done this a million times, and nothing ever comes of it. You know, go and visit these radio stations, and then come back and tell her about it. But, you know, ultimately we didn't get it, so we had been through this dance. So anyway, we're moving to Iowa. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, I made an offer, and the guy accepted it, and I wrote a big deposit check, and we're going to move to Iowa here shortly. Well, she had her, and had currently her dream job. I mean, she wasn't that excited about it, and she said, where, Iowa? And I said, yeah, you wouldn't have heard of it. It's a tiny little town, and she said, try me. You know, I said, okay, so it's Burlington, Iowa. I started explaining. It's on the Mississippi River. You're going to love it. It's a charming little town, and da-da-da-da. And she said, time out. I know all about it. And I said, how's that? And she said, well, my mother was born there.
What?
And my grandfather lives there, and we go visit him every year since I'm 3 or 4 years old, all my life.
Wow.
Huh.
Like, what? So it was just a weird, serendipitous, I don't know how it happened exactly.
That's a God thing.
Oh, yeah. So she's excited because she knows all about the town. She had been there many times. Of course, her grandfather by now was gone, but she had all kinds of family here, the Prue family, from the Prue funeral service, if I could get a little plug in there. So her mother was a Prue, and so now she's, you know, a little excited about going. But so we give a 1 month notice to both of our employers, and we sell everything we own. Sell our house with all the furniture in it, the pots and pans and the dishes and the towels, the whole. You know,
You're coming
Fully
out with,
furnished.
you're coming with nothing.
right. And we packed the smallest size U-Haul with like our photo albums and our clothes. You know, like the 6-footer that you can't stand up in. It's, you know, a little bitty thing because we had a car. We couldn't pull anything of any size.
Now, you probably don't have kids at this time.
No. And so we roll out here. I have a dog. I had a dog at that time. And so we did that. We moved in with the Prues initially. Burton Prue Sr. Does that mean something bad happened?
Okay. Well, all right. We're back. Blew a fuse on the TV. So we were at the part where you have a dog and you've got a 6-foot trailer headed to Iowa.
Staying with the Prues.
Right on. And so we get here. And now this is later in the year, so suddenly the town is a little different. It's colder. It's gray. There's no leaves on a tree. The river's not blue. I mean, like, now I'm starting to understand. I might have done something here in a rash way. Imagine. And but we got busy, threw ourselves into the work of building a radio station, because that's what it took, sort of from the ground up. There was nothing really salvageable, as it turns out, from the old one. and we had to start with the building because now I own the building.
Now that's the one downtown with all the mural on it.
Yes, yeah. One of the first things we did was wonder why the town didn't have a bunch of murals on all these old buildings in the way that cool towns do, and so we enlisted the art club. That doesn't sound right. Some people from the art center, and we tried to depict in that mural the history of that building.
Okay.
So it had been a brothel, it had been a beauty parlor, it had been a radio station, it had been a hotel of sorts. It had been a lot of things. But
If walls could talk.
yes. But ultimately, we over the course of the next few months, we got it up and running, and we had a pretty inauspicious start. The other radio stations in town at that time had a stranglehold on a lot of things, and this one had been, forgotten over this almost 2 years now since it had been on. So we had a tough road in the beginning, and any sane person would have left. In fact, my wife ultimately left the radio station because she is sane. But we kept plugging away until something happened ultimately. And one of those things that happened was the Gulf War. The first one, whatever we're calling that one. And at the time, we had been playing a mix of music, and then we had Larry King and the Overnights. We had some talk, but we still were leaning on music during the days, which I know in my heart is not the highest use of radio. Radio can serve a much better purpose than background music, in my opinion. So I always was wanting to move in that direction, but when the Gulf War started, we had people from here deployed.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, if I'm putting myself in the mind of the parents that have young men and women serving, and I'm going to cover this to the extent. We had all these networks, we had, they're all gone now in radio, but Mutual and NBC and CBS was our main network, and Westwood One and all these networks. And so they had wall-to-wall war coverage. There was that much going on, initially.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Luckily, it didn't last very long. But we went wall-to-wall with the war just because no one else was. I mean, everybody else, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, their format was music, and they played music the whole hour or commercials, and then they might give you 3 minutes of news at the top of the hour.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that's not. We have kids from here deployed there, so it just happened. I don't know, and we did it wall to wall, and it put us on the map that this would be a station that would adjust to whatever was going on at a given time that we thought was important, that ought to be broadcast. And we started doing community things too. We started broadcasting like we did Bees games back when they weren't being done by anybody. We did just things within the community. And then a light bulb went off. Oh, the community cares about the community. And so when we do things in that direction, so we started getting away from the music. And I started, of course, the morning show with a variety of, not unlike Murphy Brown, I had a variety of sidekicks, dozens of them. Apparently I'm hard to work with. So it's a tough thing to do, the morning show for regular people. These are people that have jobs later after the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to ask them to be there in the 4 or 5 o'clock hour in the morning and be up, let's go. So anyway, so that the talk show in the morning, and then the local talk show, and then some of the other talk shows, some of the big things we did. And 88, I want to say, we signed up Rush Limbaugh when he was a budding broadcast talent, when he was first getting going. I had heard him when I traveled in another market once before he was a syndicated show, and I thought, wow, this guy. I liken it to, it's like a singer that sings really well.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what the words are, but the song is really good. So he was just a talent. I wasn't aware. I was so young at the time. I wasn't really tracking politics in the way that I do now, or its connection to my life and my paycheck, let's say. And so I started to understand his message beyond that, But anyway, we signed him up. That was a big deal because then people thought they should protest, It was a different town back then, and the conservative message was not welcome, as it turns out. And,
Right.
So there was some new ground broken there through him. And then I was trying to understand why people would take the time to come down and pick at the radio station that doesn't matter. I mean, we're talking about a time when we had very, very few people listening. And we kept going, obviously, and it ultimately worked in some way because of the talking of issues that people care about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not more complicated than that. And also, by the way, in our very first January of living here, nobody broadcast the Super Bowl, which was weird. I thought, it's the Super Bowl. We have all these radio stations and nobody's going to put that on.
Right.
And I dialed around on my receiver till I found it. Had no rights to it, mind you. But I broadcast the Super Bowl just to say that we had. Later, we got the rights, and we've had the Super Bowl every year for all these 35 years now, but with the rights. And
are you the only radio station in town that has the rights?
yeah,
Okay.
so the rights are exclusive, and they cost a lot. Was the reason people didn't do it, as it turns out.
Right.
It's not always a moneymaker. Depends who's in it, right? So, but
Go
things
Bears.
like that. Yeah, I mean, the Bears weren't on, NASCAR wasn't on, the Cubs weren't on, or any baseball type thing. The World Series wasn't broadcast in this town. I just don't know what they were thinking that they would have on that would be bigger than the Super Bowl on a Sunday in the middle of January or February. So anyway, I just did these things that were obvious. It was no broadcasting genius of any kind. It was just obvious. So things started to work, and it picked up steam. And of course, now we're grateful to have a really large audience that pays attention, and we've been able to have a minor impact on the town in terms of just getting ideas out there that weren't here before, and not just about political things, all kinds of things. So, with that said, it opened my eyes to staying connected to the community. I guess all of that rolls up into a big ball of community. That was the key. So that's the short story. It goes way longer than that.
I bet. And it's worked. I mean, I'm so glad. I have to admit, when I first started listening to the station, I'm like, this guy's annoying. But I can't turn it off because
I've been told that.
It just makes sense. Some of the stuff that you talk about, and then the people that you have on the station, Rush Limbaugh when he was still alive, and some of the other people that you've had come and go on there.
Well, one of the things I appreciate about the station is that people don't understand. You go vote and you look at the ballot and you're like, I don't know any of these people,
Right.
but through that radio station, you get to hear their side. I can't always make it to city council meetings, and I work, I have kids, I have things going on, and so that's not always feasible for me to go to things like that. But being able to hear their point of view coming on, and saying this is my stance, this is where I think is a priority for the community, things like that. I appreciate that, because when I go vote, and I encourage people to go vote, because you don't complain if you don't go to vote,
Right.
just don't. And it's a privilege. Oh my goodness, we have just the voting privilege in our country that other countries are dying for, and we take it for granted.
Yep.
We really do. Like, looking at the numbers of the people that actually go out and vote, I'm like,
14% last week.
oh my
so
gosh.
low.
Yeah. And so, voting is important. And, so getting to hear the viewpoints and going and voting, not just to go vote, but voting and knowing what you're voting for, who you're voting for. That's one of the big things I appreciated about that. And that's I'm a transplant here. I married into Iowa, met him in college, and so I didn't grow up with Burlington, but I feel that listening to the things on the station that I've really become aware of different things in the community. Plus, when you have things going on in the community, it is a really good avenue just to invite people to, like, we were talking when you first came in that, I used to call into the radio station with my previous job. Things were going on. This was this event, that event. And it was just a really good way to, let people know what's going on, because without your community, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand that. I don't understand when people don't appreciate the people around them,
Right.
So
We ask and tell everybody that's doing anything in this town.
mm-hmm.
We have open phone lines every day.
Mm-hmm.
Call and tell us your thing. I mean, every now and again we're doing something serious and can't do it, but
Mm-hmm.
every charitable organization we support, call and tell us your bake sale or your whatever you got going, your church social, any of these things. And we do the same thing for the people that are running for office.
Mm-hmm.
Many good people want to run for office, and some not good people run for office, of course. But I hate the 1 minute, 90-second debate format structure. I ask you a question, then I ask him that question, and then you each get a minute to answer it, and you spend your minute fighting and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We have people on one at a time, and we'll ask them questions for an hour
Mm-hmm.
or a half hour, or whatever time they have, and the listeners can call and ask them questions. And it's not anything complicated. You just want to know who you're voting for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's amazing to me that people won't come on,
Mm-hmm.
including people that are on city councils or supervisor positions or school boards or whatever. Come on. At least keep us up to date. We can't go, like you just said, we have busy lives and we're working, got kids and other obligations and charitable things we're trying to do. We can't come to the school board meeting every time. We can't go to the city council meeting. It's just frustrating to see that not everybody takes advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
We currently have a mayor that comes on a couple, 3, 4 times a week, which is great.
Yep.
At least we know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, this is what we're trying to do. This is why we're trying to do it. People call and give him a hard time. He explains himself. At least you know where he stands and where you stand. And it's all good. We have several people like that. And a lot of good people that work at the city listen and call in, or at least give us the information when we ask for information. So, yeah, that works
Mm-hmm.
in a community this small if you can have those people on.
Well, and it's not only the local politicians. I mean, you have your Grassley check-in too, and I called in one time to, I don't remember. It was an issue with long-term care because that's where I was from, and with my long-term care meetings, we would go, and I've been to the Capitol and got to go meet people, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't where you could actually sit and ask a question. It was a, hey, how are you doing? High five on your way to the next person. But I was actually able to ask him a question that, concerned my profession at the time. And, he was on the radio, so he had to answer.
Yeah. And he's pretty good about that.
Yeah.
He pesters us to schedule him every month. And that's a sign of a really good person who's not trying to hide everything.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't always vote the way I like, but that's fine
Mm-hmm.
because he explains himself. And you can accept that explanation or not or whatever.
Right.
And I feel like that's why he's been around for 146 years.
Because he can dialogue.
And yet
He
he'll
talk.
vote for term limits if they come up. He'll tell you that. But anyway, no, he's a rare person. A lot of the political candidates for even national office, like president, will come on because of Iowa's status as first in the nation caucus. They'll come on where we wouldn't normally have a shot at them. I mean, we've had presidents and paupers on, and everybody in between. You know, that's good. I feel like everybody has a story, even if they don't have something they're trying to accomplish. We used to do a segment back when it was allowed, where we just open the phone book every morning and just put our finger on a line, blindfolded, and call that person and try to get their story. Like you're asking me these questions, I would ask those questions of just some random person who answered the phone, you know, back when there were home phones and these kinds of things.
That's awesome.
I'm
I
dating
did not.
myself terribly. But in the FCC now, you can't do an ambush call like that anymore.
Right.
You have to call and set it up and say, do you want to be on the radio? Can we get you on the radio? And then it spoils the whole vibe of, you know, being able to talk to somebody about their story. But we did that for a while, and that was great fun.
That was back when there was checkbooks and phone books
Right.
and no cell phones
And landlines.
and
Yes.
landlines.
And we don't even have a landline.
Well, we have a phone on the wall, but it's for decoration because it's one of those rotary ones.
Yes.
Is your
Yeah,
grandma's?
it's got my
And
grandma's.
have you seen the phone book lately? There's 10
It's like-
people in there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so little. It's just like, like back in the day when wrestlers would come by and they'd rip up phone books. I'm like, it's nothing now. It's just- yeah.
grandma ripping up phone books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of your interviews that you had kind of sparked your interest in another program that you actually we actually had you come on to talk about, and I'm really excited about this program. I heard that interview that you did with
Tiffany Hopman.
yes, yeah, and do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that
Yes.
came about?
Thank you for directing me there. It's always awkward to talk about yourself. Tiffany was an interview. So we have a gal that tries to coordinate the interview so we don't book people all on the same day, and I'm really bad at that. So Tina is her name in our office, and she booked Tiffany because Tiffany had a project that she was working on in Danville at the cemetery. I think it's called the Jaeger Cemetery, but it might be pronounced different than Jaeger. There might be
Jaeger.
Jaeger. Yeah, that's it. So it just came to me cold. You know, if it's a book interview like an author, I'll read. You know, they'll give me the book a week ahead of time, and I'll read it, and then I'll know something. They just handed me this flyer that Tiffany had, something along that line, that said Wreaths Across America, and I'd certainly heard of that before. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't do any research on it. It was a short interview, supposedly 10 minutes or so. And so I met her over the radio. I mean, she called in, and I'm interviewing her about this project. Apparently there are around 110 veterans laid to rest at the Jaeger Cemetery in Danville. And she wanted to sell enough wreaths through Wreaths Across America to put a wreath on each one of their graves. And I thought, wow, that's a really great thing. I'm glad we did this. And of course, we tried to help her out at the time. And through the course of interviewing her about this organization, I came to find out more about Wreaths Across America, which is a national organization. Well, it's international, in fact. But so I made the comment to her, I'm sure we have this at Aspen Grove, because I had been years before on the Aspen Grove tour that they did as a fundraiser. One time it was at night, and they had actors acting out the roles of the famous people there. It was quite interesting. And it's incredibly historic, Aspen Grove, and it actually predates the state of Iowa being a state by 3 years. So it was a cemetery for the Wisconsin territories, and it just has a fascinating history. And I assumed it had this program that she was trying to do at her cemetery there. So after the show that day, I called out there, and Mike Bloomer is I call him the superintendent, but he has a different title. I don't know what it is, but he's in charge of running the day-to-day of Aspen Grove, and a great guy. And I had known him from before because I had interviewed him years ago about he and his son restored the Civil War section of the Aspen Grove Cemetery. There's a whole section for the
Right.
Civil
Yeah,
War.
it is beautiful out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they had raised the funds and did it themselves. I mean, became trained at this skill. And so great guy, Mike and his son that helped. I think his name is Jace. And so I said, do you have Wreaths Across America? And he's like, no, we don't have that. And I'm like, are you sure? I mean, I was certain. And he said, no, we don't have that. So I called Wreaths Across America, my next call, and I said, how do I sign up to do this at my hometown cemetery? And it turns out there's a little bit of paperwork and what have you to do, but they were excited to hear about our cemetery, and we went through the paperwork process of I call it opening a local chapter. It's not called that at all, but that's the easy way to think about it.
Right.
And so I did that, and I had no idea how big Aspen Grove was or how complicated it would be. So when I had talked to Tiffany, it was like the fall of the year, and she had to get these 110 wreaths, bought. She had to get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
She needed people to help her do this, and she needed volunteers on that day. And I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I could take that on for Aspen Grove. And so we put the cart in front of the horse and started to do that, only to find later that there are nearly 3,000 veterans at
Oh,
Aspen
my
Grove.
goodness.
So, 2,890 as I stand here today. And not just that, but they have a veteran from every war that's ever been fought. And I mean every Revolutionary War veteran there by the name of Morgan. I've sadly forgotten his first name. War of 1812, Spanish-American Civil War, of course, has its own section.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds. They have a World War I, Spanish-American War section of the cemetery. And then they have a sort of a modern section that brings us all the way up to today, to all the stuff in the Middle East. And that number, 2,890, was just nothing that I had anticipated. So I called my people at Wreaths Across America. They have a liaison that tries to help you. It's our first year. We don't know what we're doing.
Right.
So they're trying to give you guidance. And she's saying, listen, you need to make your goal for year one something reasonable. You can't sell 3,000 wreaths in your first year, and you've got a late start already, and you don't know what you're doing, and you don't have any groups organized. And I said, oh, okay, that sounds like good advice. And so initially around the office there, we were talking about 300 to 500 wreaths would be probably something we could do. And we had, several months to get it done, and, we would do it on the radio, and I would go out to service groups and try to speak and what have you. And then it occurred to me at some point, as I talked more to Mike Bloomer at Aspen Grove. By the way, the board at Aspen Grove had to give permission. I mean, the thought of that we're going to have hundreds of volunteers out there, that we're going to have this big hubbub on this day. I mean,
Right.
they're taking a leap of faith that we're going to do this right and get it done in a way that reflects well on them. So thank you for that, board of directors. But Bloomer made all that happen. But when he gave me these numbers, we got to talking about how we're actually physically going to do it. And he mentions it's 133 acres.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that big.
Oh, yeah. There's 6.5 miles of roads in there. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. Well, where are the veterans? Because I'm visualizing this Wreaths Across America started at Arlington National Cemetery, a place I had been several times in my life. And, there's way too many of them, 300,000 in round numbers. But they're all right there. There's no going and finding them. When you look at Aspen Grove, yes, there are veterans' cemeteries for various wars, but there are also thousands of veterans the bulk of them are buried in their family plots or with their families. You know, they're not in the particular designated places, if you will. So now it becomes, oh, how do we do that? Anyway, in the course of talking about that, I said, well, what happens if we sell 500 wreaths, our goal for year one? How do we decide that you get a wreath but you don't?
Right.
How do we decide, you know? And we beat that around for quite a little bit, and then just there's no way to do that. You're either doing all the veterans or you're not. So my first few speeches to various service groups or youth groups or church groups or people, I was saying, you know, we're going to do our best to get some number of wreaths, and then it became, we're going to try to get all the wreaths for all the veterans, and then it became, yes, we're going to get all, I mean, there's just no other way to do it. So we, as I stand here today, with a deadline looming of November 27th, that's the Monday after Thanksgiving, that's the cutoff date for us telling the wreaths people how many wreaths to send. I've already told them to send 2,900 is the actual goal number. I've already told them send 2,900, and they said it doesn't work that way. We send the number of wreaths that you have sent the money for. You know, obviously we have, as of this year, 4,100 some cemeteries. We can't just loan everybody the differentials all across the country. You know, there's over 3 million wreaths going out on this thing, and you know, obviously their heart's in the right place, but you know, they're a charity. They don't just have money laying around, so we can't front you the wreaths. And I said, no. You know, we're going to get the number. Well, you got to get the number by November 27th. So like, okay, so there's no wiggle room there. So we really got active in the community. Then I started calling on individual businesses, any place where people gather. They have been nice enough to let me speak. And what is today? Yesterday we announced on the radio that we went past 2,000 for the first time.
Wow.
So that was first of all, it was a month to get to 1,000. I never thought we were going to get to 1,000. It lags, you know, when people decide they want to do a thing and then to get around to doing it is another thing. So anyway, we surpassed 2,000 yesterday, and so we have about 900 more to get. And the way we get them is we've been distributing flyers that look like this, that have a QR code on them. This is for the young people. They scan that with their phone and stuff happens. We also have a link and also have the address for the radio station, the post office box. Those are the 3 ways that they can do it. If they do it right online, it shows up right away. But they can also, people just bring checks to the radio station as long as they're made out to Wreaths Across America. Then we can do it. I do the paperwork on my end. We mail them all in. That's the procedure. But you can do it online through the link or through the QR code, either one as well. And so
the QR code will specifically credit towards,
it goes right to our
for Aspen Grove
local
area.
thing. Yeah, that's why that exact link or that exact QR code is important, because otherwise you're contributing to the national effort, which is great, but we don't see any wreaths at Aspen Grove as a result of that.
Right.
So that's a kind of a part that not everybody of every age understands how the internet works or these codes or these kinds of things. So a lot of people are just more comfortable. They've been listening to us for years, and they're comfortable bringing a check out to the radio station. They know where we are, and they know who to give it to. And then I take care of it from there. The only situation that presents is there's lag time. Like I think on the website this morning, it shows just under 1,600 wreaths in the system. I'm tracking how many are in the pipeline, which I know is, as of this morning, about 890 more than that. So I know the real number, and they will credit they will send the wreaths for the checks that are in the pipeline.
Okay, that's good.
Because we have these sheets that we have to fill out that go with them. There's a lot of information to know. So we can send them the sheets over the email, and they've got the sheets, and so they know the numbers, and then they don't actually put the credits in till the checks come in, but at least they'll ship the right amount, which is key to my...
Now, is there either a way you prefer it so you can keep track? Would you rather them do the QR code?
Well,
or...
if they do the QR code, I see it instantly on my computer. Instantly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Some of the places where I have spoken, Farney's as an example downtown, had a great fundraiser for us.
Oh, nice.
A couple Saturdays ago. Packed the place, raised an enormous amount of money. I mean, God bless them. But as I was standing there giving my little spiel, I had my phone open to our page, and I was watching the wreaths get bought from people I was recognizing. It's a small town. I know a lot of people. I saw them out there in the audience, and, they're so, especially the young people, they're so slick about everything. They're doing it and did it already before I finished my speech. And my speech was like 3 minutes. And they had already done it, and I saw them coming in, so I started calling them out, hey, I say, and calling them by name. But it's all of it works in whatever way that people are comfortable. It all works just great on our end of it, even though it's our first year. So we're going to make it to that number. Yes, we still need help. Mm-hmm. And if by some miracle we go over that number, you do get to bank them for next year. They're already done. You have that head start for next year.
Nice.
Yeah. People have asked where I've spoken, what about Sacred Heart as an example? The cemetery in Crapo Park. Mm-hmm. Crapo? Yeah. Yep. So I feel like I should answer that because people have loved ones and veterans out there as well. It's not nearly the size, obviously, of Aspen Grove. You can see all of it standing there in one corner of it. But the goal of the organization, Wreaths Across America, is to put a veteran's wreath on every American veteran wherever they are in this world. Mm-hmm. So they already do, for instance, many of the European cemeteries that house American veterans. There are whole American cemeteries in Normandy, as a for instance. Mm-hmm. And so that's why the growth. They started in 1992, and they have grown to this 4,000. It might, by the end of this year, be 4,200 cemeteries. They've got all 50 states. They're at over 3 million wreaths this year for the first time.
That's amazing.
But it's growing still really rapidly because they are determined every year in the second or third Saturday of December to put a remembrance wreath on every veteran's grave, wherever that may be. So I can't worry about all that any more than I can worry about what's going on in Washington, D.C. So I act local, so we're going to do over time all of the Des Moines County cemeteries, and there are quite a number of them, it turns out.
Yeah.
After I already promised that, again, I found out you should have thought, you should have. But the procedure is relatively straightforward now that I'm doing it once. But I would love to get, and if anyone listening or watching, I'd love to get a location coordinator at every little cemetery in our county because it's very personal. You might not have someone at Sacred Heart, but you might have someone at Memorial Park, let's say. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking for people that have something at stake in each individual cemetery, and we will help them to do the paperwork to be the location coordinator for that location. Okay. And
That's
then
good.
over time, as we'll continue to get the wreaths, over time. And we will be able to, we don't have this now, but we will be able to, on our place on that website, you'll pull down a menu that says Aspen Grove, Sacred Heart, Memorial Park, Pioneer, whatever all the cemeteries are. And you'll be able to direct through our fundraising to any of the Des Moines County cemeteries. But that's not going to be this year.
Right.
This year we are laser focused on getting to 2,900. And so it's going to be an exciting day, December 16th. The second part of it is we do need volunteers that day.
How many volunteers are you looking for?
We would like to have 200 volunteers. Mike Bloomer, my constant companion now, I always knew the man, but now I'm getting to know him a lot because he has an enormous job on the actual implementation side. We're going to have a small ceremony on December 16th, and we will show our first-time volunteers exactly how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have the cemetery gridded up into grids so you know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
We will have pallets of the wreaths at the corners of the grids. And he's had this genius idea where he's going to have the little orange construction flags, like, call before you dig, those flags.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Little tiny flags everywhere there. Because some of these gravestones are not marked or you can't read them anymore.
Right.
It doesn't say, Corporal such and such. It doesn't say anything like that. So he's doing all that behind-the-scenes research. He's going to have everyone marked so everybody knows what they're doing. And then we'll turn in these flags, and then we'll make one last pass through all of it. And if we don't see any orange flags, and we're also simultaneously have only 10 wreaths left by our calculation,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're going to have, then we'll know that we got them all. So that's an enormous undertaking on that side of it. But if you can visualize volunteers like 6.5 miles of roads out there, I drove it yesterday just to sort of visualize it, and it's just too big. It's enormous. It's blocks long. So we're going to have to come up with a way for the young people to go the furthest.
Yeah. And the hills, they can do the hills.
Yes, it's got a lot of topography out there, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It's really hilly. It's beautiful, though. I was there yesterday, and the trees are just beautiful this time of the year. It's a beautiful blue sky. But obviously, we'll stage at the veterans designated plots as well. Some of the people, but we'll have to get some people in pretty good shape to do the farthest away, like in the old cemetery or whatever. But we're envisioning having some of the Aspen Grove people that really know the cemetery well. Everyone's going to get a map of where they're going. But we'll have them stationed like supervisors in different places so that if you struggle to find where you're going, there'll be somebody nearby that you can call and say, hey, I can't find this. And they'll take you right to it. Their knowledge of that cemetery is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
So,
Did I answer that question?
yeah. How much are the wreaths?
The wreaths are $17 if you buy one
Mm-hmm.
delivered. 300 trucking companies across this country have donated the equipment. Truckers have donated their time, all of it. And the fuel has all been donated
Oh, wow.
to bring us a wreath here, a fresh balsam wreath, handmade, for $17. But here's the catch. If you buy two, you get a third one. We get a third one free.
Okay.
That's the deal. So when you buy three, it's $34.
Mm-hmm.
So that's $11.33 by my calculation, but you shouldn't trust me on that. So they're about $11.33 delivered if you'll buy more than one. Now,
Okay.
this applies all the way up to if you bought 100, if you bought 500, that bonus goes anything after one wreath. So you can send a check for $100. It doesn't have to be divisible by 17.
Mm-hmm.
102, though, is divisible by 17. I now know. But so people are doing that. People are giving money in any amount.
Mm-hmm.
And the organization, even if it's a fraction of a wreath, keeps track of all the fractions of wreaths, and those add up to additional wreaths. And we have this great bonus system going.
Nice.
And so that's really, that's a good question, by the way, how much. But it ends up to be $11.33 delivered to Aspen Grove, fresh, in boxes on pallets. I mean, it's a slick system.
You can't get a plastic one at the box store for that.
Yeah, I know. That was the other part of it. It's so well organized on the national level. They only have a total of 45 volunteers for that whole organization. It's incredible what they get done every year. It's just impossible. I almost have 45 volunteers at this point, so I don't know how they do it, but that's the procedure as it lays out. And then an important element of this that I don't expect you to know to ask me is there's a mission that has three things. So their mission is to remember the fallen, honor those who served, and the third and maybe as important part of this is to teach. Teach the next generation the value of freedom. This takes a variety of ways to make it work. One is just the simple, if you will bring your kids out on that day with you. Kids being kids will ask questions and learn things and see things. And they will begin to start to make connections that they've never made out of a history book. You can learn about World War II, and hopefully we're still teaching that somewhere in this world. But to stand there, or same thing with the Civil War. We teach the Civil War in a different kind of way now than we did when I was a kid, and that's all well and good, whatever's going on there. But when you stand there and you see the gravestones of these Civil War soldiers restored as they are, and you see the dates on there, and you start to go, wait 18? What century is that? It's amazing, and it's a tangible teaching that can't happen in a classroom. So the teach element of this actually has, the Wreaths Across America program actually has a curriculum that goes K through 12 with this.
Really?
And again, not to get out ahead of ourselves, but we're already talking to the schools. We already have found willing people that will help us in that part of the mission, which is going to be to get the kids, first step, out to the cemetery to participate in the ceremony and understand that part of it. And then from there, when they start to learn about it in their classrooms or in their church groups or in their Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, or Brownies, wherever they are, they're going to learn about the rest of it. And it's going to mean something to them because they've been out already. And as that grows in this community over time, I feel like we're going to have better kids that are better educated and understand things that some other kids don't.
Right.
And that's part of what attracted me to this too. Is it just when you talk about the sacrifice that veterans gave, it's an incredible thing. I mean, there are times when there have been drafts in this country, and that's not a popular notion, of course. And there have been times when there is no draft, like now, and people, young men and women, sign up to do this thing that could very easily result in the ultimate sacrifice. That is to say, give your life for this country. I mean, the thought that people could do that at that age. I think of when you hear these stories, and we've interviewed many of that greatest generation over the years. Most of them are sadly gone now, but I mean, they left high school at 17, lied about their age, went in the service. I mean, went directly over and fought, and it's incredible. I think about when I was 17. No, we were, I don't know, not doing good things.
I was a knucklehead at 17.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the maturity level to understand these concepts that, hey, they need me. Now, this happened after 9/11, by the way, too.
Yeah.
In modern, you don't have to go back to World War II. how many people signed up on 9/12? I mean, and said, "Oh, this is too far.
Right.
We're going to do something." So these people deserve to be remembered and honored, and that has to carry into the generations.
Mm-hmm.
That has to hopefully going forward. We could all hope for less war, death, and destruction, and all of that stuff. But whether it's there or not there at any given time, you have to understand how we got here and how we got to where we are. And I feel like that part of the mission is going to be a really rewarding one over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of the things that when I was working at my previous job with the elders and listening to their stories, and when you said someone lied about their age of 17 to get it, I knew a person that did that, and
Me too.
And just hearing his stories, and we had a veterans board, and we didn't have Wreaths Across America there, but I had a veterans Christmas tree, and we had their pictures on there, and it was they lit up when they saw that recognition. And we had every Memorial Day, every Veterans Day, all those days we had something to honor the veterans. And yesterday, Hy-Vee had their veterans breakfast. I was like, I used to take my guys there. I loved being able to, just be around that, and
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So the whole project in that three piece mission statement that they have, they're just really on the right track. It's a really good thing for a community. And the last element of that teach part of this mission is that we could go any day. We're of an age where we're not going to be around necessarily. We call ourselves middle-aged, but unless you're living to be 100 and plus. So I need this to continue, because if it's worth doing now, it's worth continuing. And this year will be the start of this tradition that will be in this town, that will grow in the way that the national effort has grown, hopefully. And this started with this family in Maine as a family project that they did around the holidays. And it grew then to some people wanting to help them, and then and then other people saw it and went, hey, we're going to do that too. And it's just grown beautifully, and I would love to see it grow in this community so that people can remember their loved ones. And there's also the idea that, generations and families die off. There's nobody, some of the people we're going to honor and remember have family here that go out on Memorial Day and put something on their grave and these kinds of things. Many do not. The idea of dying, in the physical sense, when you cease to breathe anymore and your heart stops beating and you're dead, that's one thing. Another thing is the second time you die, which is when no one on this earth has said your name ever again. So if you look out there at those regular veteran Civil War soldiers that are buried out there, not talking about the generals and general courses out there or whatever, just ordinary people, nobody has said their names in maybe 100 years. Yeah. Part of this is when we lay the wreath, the procedure is you say their names out loud. You honor them with introducing them and remembering them now to this current generation. And 2,890 people are going to have their names said, some of them that haven't been said in forever. So this is an important part of the continuing of the line of understanding this beautiful gift of this country that we have been given.
I think it's an amazing thing. So we know how to get the wreath. How do we volunteer?
Same thing. The QR code or the link. The link either one and the QR code go directly to the KCPS Radio for Aspen Grove section of Wreaths Across America. And there are two buttons there. The first button says sponsor a wreath, and this one next to it says volunteer.
Okay.
So it's a simple matter of putting your name and hopefully a phone number or an email address or some way that you can then be in the information flow. That says, we're going to be here at 10:45 on this day. You're going to park here. You're going to sign up at this table. And then we're going to have this short ceremony, and then you're going to go these places. So we can get that information out to everybody at once, and that we know that we're covered. Mm-hmm. I think we currently have 40 or 50 volunteers, something like that. It's because I've been focusing on the wreaths part, not the volunteers part. So I'm going to have to do that switch over here pretty soon. But if we don't have, let's say we had 100 volunteers come, it's going to be a long day, and just because of the logistics of it. These things are typically done in 2 hours, even at huge cemeteries in this world. So we have to keep an eye on the volunteer part of this and make sure we have enough so that you're not going on a 10-mile walk today,
Right.
back and forth,
And December 16th is going to be chilly.
Yeah, it's a Saturday. We're going to start 11 in the morning to try to hope for. Now I have checked the weather. Mm-hmm. You know how good we are at predicting weather in the future. But historically, it's anything. The average temperature on that day is about 40 as a high.
Nice.
That's good.
We have had 61 once recently.
I'm voting for 61.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. But there's also a random chance out there that it could be snow on the ground. It's not normal.
I heard it's winter time.
Yeah. It's not normal that there would be snow on the ground in those days. You might see some flakes or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be a layered day.
Right.
For sure.
Well, I tell you what. I was just talking to Amy this morning, and at least 4 from our house. I know one of them, our daughter's going to be working, so our 2
Beautiful.
boys will come with us.
Yeah, and then Boy Scout troops, like you said, Girl Scout troops, church groups. I mean, there's a lot of feet in this town that could be walking those trails with you.
What I'm asking people to do is to go out into wherever their sphere of influence is. It might be a church group. It might be a service group you belong to. It might be a group of veterans that get together every so often at a given place, or just a group of friends or families. We would love to have your families out. We would love if you have influence in a classroom, if you're a teacher, as a for instance, to at least get a hold of me. We'll send these flyers. You can hand out these flyers, obviously with permission from your principal or what have you. But to just, in an organic sense, have regular people come out.
How neat to have like
this.
a history class do that, that would be perfect for,
Right.
Something like that.
And Aspen Grove, you will learn things you didn't know about this town out there. It's incredible. It's an incredible cemetery.
Yes, beautiful cemetery. So, yeah.
There's you said it was how many acres?
133.
Wow, I just didn't realize it was that big. I've driven around and things like that, but
We used to go sledding on Camel. I think they called it Camelback Hill, clear back by the train tracks.
I noticed all the different names yesterday for the first time. Of course, I've been to funerals out there a bunch of times. But everything's named. Somebody knows. People that work there know where things are, but it's daunting to a regular person that doesn't get there every day. It really is.
Yep.
So we'll have maps. We'll have grids. We'll have people to help you. It's going to be a beautiful ceremony.
Yes. Yeah.
So do the wreaths? Do they all have the red bows like in the picture there?
Yes, just a plain handmade balsam wreath with one red bow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end, like when the wreaths are, done, do we need to go back and pick them up? Need to go back and pick up the red bows?
That's what they do at a lot of places. The volunteers come out a second time. But Mike at Aspen Grove says this is something they do all the time. They're constantly picking up things there every day, and they will decide that date and that they will pick him up, and if he needs volunteers, he will call, and I'll put out the
Oh,
word.
okay.
So we're not expecting for the volunteers to do anything except the actual day of the thing, but it's possible that a dozen or two could be needed later,
Okay.
and we would contact and see who's available.
Gotcha. Because I figured the wreaths would kind of disintegrate, or the deer would come and munch on them, but I didn't know about the bows, so that's good.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's I don't know how we would do this without the assistance of Aspen Grove. I don't know anything about how to run a cemetery and anything like that, but they do such a great job, and they have so many things going on behind the scenes that you just wouldn't know. You know how everyone else's job seems so easy? How hard could it be? They really have it figured out there. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool.
trying to stay in my little lane, let them do the cemetery part.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you added this to your lane, because this is I saw a special on TV about this a couple 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even remember, but I was really intrigued. I was like, that's really a neat way to honor people, and they gave the history and stuff like that. But I'm really glad that it's coming here. So
Yeah, me too. Again, there's so many things that are out of our control in this country and in this world, but this is very much in our control. At Arlington, they had 90,000 volunteers, which gives hope, because it is just right in Washington, D.C., right on the edge there. And I found great comfort in just knowing that, But same thing here. We will have many people show up for this, and it'd be great if you could register first on the website. So the link and the QR code. I don't know. What do you plan to do in terms of?
Well, we'll have the QR code for
Okay.
those that are.
Beautiful.
They can just snap it on there. As far as the link, I don't know how to put a link on my videos where you can click on it.
Okay.
So
but you can put it on the comments.
QR code, yeah.
You can put it on the
Right.
introduction.
So definitely the QR code will be on there, and
We'll get it on there.
yes.
Right. Just for people, it seems hard to remember, but it's super easy. Our code is IA for Iowa 0064 for no reason. IA 0064. So if you can remember the wreathsacrossAmerica.org, it's an organization, right? wreathsacrossAmerica.org / and then our code IA 0064.
Are we the 64th chapter in
Yeah,
Iowa?
We are, yeah.
Okay.
We are very much. And I'll give a quick shout out to, for those of you up in the Danville area, Tiffany Hopman still has not made her goal. We're going to help her get there as soon as I'm done getting these 2,900. But for those of you that have loved ones or are Danville-based people, she is there. She is IA 0055P. I don't know why she has a P. Maybe because it's a private cemetery. I don't know. I'm not sure. But she's also in the countdown period to get all of her stuff in.
Right.
But
Can you see, like, if you click on different places, can you see where there's a goal and how close people are to their
Yes.
goal? Okay.
Yep. With either of those two codes, when you go there, you will see how close they are to their goal. They'll tell you the actual number. Again, I will say for our people, we have 890-ish, more than that in the pipeline. Those might never show up until after the fact. If you can visualize on their receiving end, so besides the 4,000 plus cemeteries, most places have 4 or 5 or 10 or 12 sponsorship groups like we are for this one.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have one. You have to be a very, very small cemetery to have one. Like Tiffany's is a great example. If there's 100 wreaths, you can probably do that as one person.
Mm-hmm.
But most of these places have a lot of sponsorship groups all trying do that for that one goal, because they all have their different things. Boy Scout troops do this as a project. Chambers of Commerce, different ones do this thing. So they have on their end of it, especially toward the deadline, tens of thousands of envelopes coming in every day from all of us out here. And each envelope has bunches of checks and papers that go along with them. Everybody gets a sheet. It's a logistical nightmare on their end, so they get behind and don't get that. So it's up to us to keep track of what's in the pipeline, and then we get the right number of wreaths.
Gotcha.
So we're tracking that pretty. I didn't know that till yesterday, by the way. I kept saying, how come we can't get to 2,000? And all along we're at 2,000, but I just didn't know it.
So that was a pleasant surprise then, right?
Yes, it was a great day yesterday because, I don't know, been pushing this rock up a hill a little while, and it was starting to be a little discouraging because I know every place I've been and every person I've talked to, they've responded. Nobody has said, that's not for me.
Right.
Nobody. Right. The businesses I've gone to have been just terrific. These businesses in town, they're getting nothing out of this. I'm just walking in the door, and they're just embracing it. It's just wonderful to see. I get a lot of no's when I'm out selling radio advertising, so I'm not used to getting so many yeses. So anyway, it's just been great. The town is just, and I knew it would be. I knew this town would respond to this. Little known factoid, I learned some years back, and I assume it's still true. The state of Iowa has more people served per capita than any other place. It's always in the top if it's not number one, but it's usually at the top. That meaning for our small population, per how many there are, more people go into the military services here than other states, and that's something to be proud of.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. So is this organization, I'm sure it is, a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's a 501c3.
Okay. So a lot of people at the end of the year look for places to donate before,
Right.
And they can go ahead and afterwards even just go ahead and pop it in for the next year's.
And it'll go for next year, yeah.
Okay.
And I know this only because when I deal with corporations, I have to get them the tax sheet, which I have. Bam, hit them with that. And they get their proper, whatever it is they're doing, with the tax deduction. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of figured it was, but, while people are thinking about this and maybe watching this after the fact, if they, go back to it and be like, aha, that's some place I can, get behind. And
They make a real point to say at Wreaths Across America, it's a year-round effort if you're doing it right. So I haven't been doing it right. It's my first year. We only just got around to it. But I see what they mean. If you're doing this right, you're at least organizing people, even right after you've finished your thing in January, getting scheduled to speak at various groups, youth groups, and wherever you can speak, and make it a year-round effort, and it makes it a lot easier. So we'll take that advice for next year.
Well, this is your inaugural year, so it'll be a year to grow and learn, and
Right.
And do you know how many cemeteries are in Des Moines County?
I don't know the number, but 3 of the businesses that have really helped us out so far with big donations has been Lyda Burson Metz, the Prue Funeral Service, and the Lunning Chapel.
Okay.
Those 3, all when I said in subsequent years we're going to get to all the cemeteries in Des Moines County, they all went, oh. And I went, well, what does that mean? Do you know what you're saying? And I said, well, I think I do. And then they start explaining there are a number of them. There's small cemeteries scattered all over. It's, people that are way out in the country and on farms and stuff. They have these little cemeteries, little pockets of things. Like an example would be on the bluff over on 6th Street, North Hill. There's a cemetery that goes back to the Civil War there, just like several city lots worth, with houses right across the street from them. I mean, it's not even big enough. There's not like a parking place. It's just this thing. I don't even know what it's called. The 6th Street Cemetery? I don't know. But we got a guy that wants to buy an extra wreath and put it there this year because he's got someone there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, you know what? I rode my bike past there one time. I remember that.
Yeah.
But they're all over.
Yeah, I remember there's one just outside the ammunition plant fence. Going out there, it's like driven that road millions of times, and then looked over one day. It's like there's like headstones there. Never seen that.
Right.
It's just amazing, and it's got to be old.
Yeah.
Really old.
There's a little bitty one on the way to the landfill. Out,
Yeah.
whatever
In
road
fact,
that is.
at Flint Hills Golf Course, at number, where you tee up for number 1 and number 10 are back to back to one another, so the front 9 goes that way and the back 9 goes the other. There's a little tiny stand of trees right as you're standing on the 10th tee, and the clubhouse is just right over there. And there's just a little stand of trees, and there are some graves right there.
Really?
Somebody's ancestral whatever Steingraber, I think, is the name on the stone, and it was probably their land before it was belonged to the city or what have you. And yeah, they're tucked away in some places, and so we're going to find people for each of these cemeteries, and we get one location coordinator for each little one, and then we'll still continue to do the fundraising aspect of it, but share with whoever's.
Right.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
So the December 16th, you said the second, is it the second Saturday or whatever? Is that the nationwide?
Yeah,
Everyone
it's
does it at the same
everybody
time?
on that day, except for my friend Tiffany in Danville. They have a conflict with something, so they're going to go the week ahead, and they had to get special permission for that because the idea is that everybody is going to be on the 16th. She's going to be on the 10th, I think.
Okay.
But yes, coast to coast and all over the world. In fact, you see on the flyer it says National Wreaths Across America Day. So the idea is everybody in one shot, will do the remembrance on that day. So that's exciting. I'm happy to participate in it, and we hope to get some good photos and footage of it. So next year, when we're out explaining things to people, I don't have to show them. The video that I show now is the national organization doing the various places. I want to show our place.
Sure. Well, I tell you what, I would like to bring up some of my cameras and audio equipment and maybe record some of the ceremony.
Please do.
It may not be the most professional thing, but I'm learning.
No, please do. We're saying yes to everybody. I don't need people with any special training. I need people that mean well, and we'll snap some pictures and take some videos, and then we'll have some common place where we can all email or send all the stuff, and we'll cut that all up for next year and have some good stuff, because I feel like on the organizational side of this, we're going to be busy enough that I'm not going to see it. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to be all over, and we're going to be everywhere and nowhere at once.
Yep.
That kind of a day.
You're going to be in the mist,
Yeah.
not the overhead looking down.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great if people, even on their iPhones or whatever, will just shoot whatever they can.
Yep. Awesome.
That'll be great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get my kids involved in something like that. I remember my family's in Hawaii, and I went to go visit them before we were married, and going to Pearl Harbor and talking to a person who was there, and I thought, how amazing. And now I don't think there's anyone over at Pearl Harbor that was there that day, but to be able to remember, service like that, service here locally, they were all over the world when they were serving. So, yeah.
Yes, it's a good thing. I told this story before, but we went on a field trip to Arlington National Cemetery when I was a kid, and I was living in Virginia, and it was one of the stops, and Ford's Theater and this and that and the other. You go all the historic places, but I was like, maybe I was 12 or 13 or something, and so it was a matter of all of us loading on school buses and playing grab ass all the way there, and just being kids and not caring. And then I also remember we went to the Tomb of the Unknowns, and even at that age, I mean, you stop it gets, it just gets you
Yeah.
in your heart in a way. And I didn't know what all that emotion was, at that time. I understand it now. So it's this for kids is going to be a good day. So thank you for bringing your kids. That
Yeah.
would be great.
Well, have we left anything out?
It's about as complete a treatment as I've been expected to give so far. Yeah.
Well, we will have the QR code up. We will have the link up.
Beautiful.
And I'm going to put posters up where I work. And I think, you said earlier it's an organic movement. And so, each one, reaching out, to make this happen. I'm really excited that you're here and that we can be a part of that, because that's something very meaningful.
Thank you. And I'll drop one last thing on you.
Sure.
The good folks at Refreshment Services Burlington Pepsi-Cola have this, a big poster, in every grocery store in the Pepsi aisle, and even bigger ones outside in some of the convenience stores. Every convenience store, every grocery store, any place that sells Pepsi that they've allowed them to do it, which is most places, they have the QR code and the link and all of that right in the store.
Nice.
You don't have to go anywhere. They put a major effort into it, and I thank them. I don't even know how to. I've stopped knowing how to thank them. They've done so much. They've printed so many things, and to the part where they give a portion of their proceeds, which is going to be very, very helpful to us. So, if you're wanting to do it and you're out in your regular travels and you don't have to go to any great lengths, all of this stuff will be in any store that you go into where there's a Pepsi sold. So that's awesome.
Awesome.
So you had Pepsi supporting Light. What was the Prue and
Lunning and Prue and Lightburst and Metz.
Lightburst and Metz.
And Deary Brothers, and I mean we got a lot of them. A bunch of Farney's Tavern. They have done two different things for us that have been such a huge thing. I mean, lots of businesses have stepped up, and that's been really, really helpful. I don't know how to thank everybody in the community. Like there's 1,000 people that have done it, but there's dozens of businesses too that I walk in the door and they listen and then they tell me to go away and they make a decision and then a check comes in the mail and it's awesome. It's just
nice.
Great. Yeah.
Great.
So the QR code that you have for this year, is that a QR code that can be used? That'll be always linked. Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll definitely push this and hopefully we can get some people out to support and buy some wreaths and get out there and help put them on there and
learn from it. Yeah.
Definitely learn. It's going to be a great day.
Yep, right on.
Great day.
I'll be there.
Genatino, thank you.
Thank
so
you
much
for having me. Appreciate it.
Coming on. And Burlington, we'll have somebody else on next week. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.
Bye.